Built our
There
own.
we go. We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur, where we're taking a break from the the films that are accidentally scary. In fact, that is over now. But
Already?
yep, with these films, this is Tammy's. These are Tammy's birthday picks, and then we start the new month and new theme. So, but Tammy, why don't you tell us what film is first in store for tonight? I do believe that that there be winged creatures in this one, correct?
Yes.
So why don't you?
The first film is called Dragonheart. It's 1996 film by Rob Cohen. It's basically about a last night of the old code and the last dragon, and how they come together to basically end up fighting evil. So
It's pretty great.
Dennis Quaid is one of the main characters. He is Bowen, our knight. Sean Connery is the Draco, the voice of the dragon. We also have Dinah Meyer. She is Kara. She is one of the other main ladies in there in the film. And we have our monk is Gilbert. He's Peter Pastwaith.
Mhm.
Here, Postway?
Yep.
Yeah. And then our king, well, he ends up being the king. David Thewlis is Einan, and his mother is the queen, and that's played by Julie Christie.
I think the guy who plays Einan, I think he was also the villain in Dinotopia, which is the other thing I recognize him from.
He's
Oh,
also from Harry Potter. He plays Professor Lupin.
Harry
Yeah, he's
Potter?
been in a few things.
Dinotopia is something I haven't heard for a long time.
Well, I recognize him from Dinotopia. I've actually never seen it. I saw the first Harry Potter movie, never seen any of the rest of them, never read any of the books.
I only read I remember reading I only read Dinotopia, the book, when I was like 7.
I was really hyped for the miniseries, and it was a good miniseries.
It was. I'm not. I wish they would have gone on further with this with the series that came after the miniseries, because it was a miniseries and then it went into a season 1, and then it quit. It was like, oh crap.
Just a little note before we get into people's first impressions. This was done by Universal Pictures, and it was filmed in Braslavia, Slovakia.
Ooh.
So do we want to start first impressions?
Sure.
Let's start with Brandon.
Okay. Well, my first impression, I was in my teens when this first came out. Well, actually, no, not even teens. I was late teens, I think. This is what, 96?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember first looking at this, and I was interested in Sean Connery's work because, I mean, I liked his Bond. Well, actually, I liked his concept of Bond because I hadn't seen a Bond movie by that time. But I did like him and other things that he did. So I was very interested in checking out this film. And since I really liked fantasy novels and stuff like that, I watched this. I think it was on HBO with my parents at the time, and I thought it was fairly decent. It didn't impress me as something that was, life changing for me, but it was a decently good film, and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Okay, let's go over to Kroll.
Well, I was in my early 20s. I actually thought I hadn't seen this movie. I'd forgotten I had, but once watching it again, I remembered things, and so I guess I must have seen it. Probably not at the theater. I was too busy working at the time, but I must have caught it on TV or something. I would always love Dragon, so it's definitely something I'd probably watch. While I was looking for this movie on my TV, I noticed there's actually 5 of these movies. So I gotta check out the other ones because I definitely know I've not seen the other 4. Not sure exactly how they did it. I guess because the start of this one, how it ended, but I'll have to check it out and see how they do it. But yeah, I like the movie. It was good. I love Sean Connery. He's the best Bond, and he's great in all the movies he's been in. Really. He did a great job as the voice. The last of the old knights. That was great character. Well done. Dennis Quaid did a really great job playing him. Yeah, I liked all the cast. The movie was fun. Like you said, not life changing or anything. But yeah, it's definitely a fun movie and enjoyable, and I don't really have any complaints about it.
Okay.
Okay, let's go over to you, Dustin.
All right, so I saw this a long time ago when it came out. Well, I didn't see it right away when it came out. I saw it on TV several months to a year after, so I don't know exactly when in its life cycle. But it was something that I was kind of excited for, that we just never got to go see when it was newer. I remember there were a lot of toys for it, and I never got to get my hands on any of the toys. It's kind of funny because there were a lot of different dragon figures, but there's only one dragon in the movie. Well, okay, technically 2, but you never really see the other dragon.
I mean, there's only one Batman, but they made multiple Batman toys for each movie.
Well, there were different individual dragons that were not Draco figures, if I remember correctly. And there's only Draco and the dragon that's killed off screen in this movie. But anyway, we used to go to, it's a little bit of a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. We used to go to this thing called Polish Fest that had it was like a mini carnival that had little carnival games with prizes. And one year in prizes, they had a whole box of Dragonheart collector cards. And we ended up getting that, and I had almost the whole movie in a little card form. They were just tops, standard movie collector cards.
Yeah, they kind of did the same thing for Jurassic Park.
Exactly. That's exactly what those were. So I always think of those when I see this or think of this movie. I wonder what happened to those. But anyway, I have a pretty positive opinion of this movie. For some reason, it didn't get... I think it got, mediocre reviews, which kind of baffles me. I mean, it's a little sappy, and it's a little...
There's a lot that goes into
towards
the
kids,
backstory.
but it's a really good, really fun story. So I'm kind of baffled as to why it's not more well received. Most of my friends really like it too, if they know about it. My friend Adam is a big fan of it. He loved quoting the one line from when Gowan when Bowen, I keep calling him Gowan. When Bowen and Draco meet and have their little fight, "Come visit the woods." That was his favorite phrase. He would say that a lot. So I've got a lot of memories involving this movie, I guess is my point. So yeah, pretty positive overall. Kind of grew up with it. It's great.
Okay, let's go over to you, Dave.
Yes. I actually saw this film in the theaters. This is one of the ones that my mentor took me to go see, and I loved it. I mean, I thought that this was a game changer for dragons in general. I mean, I'd never seen. I'd seen like all the sci-fi dragons that had come to TV before this, and I was like, nah, that's not a dragon. And ever since Dragon's Lair, there hadn't been something, the Dragon Lance, and maybe even Dragon Slayer. I hadn't really seen a dragon that I could call a dragon. Something that you could be like, I want that in my home. So I love the comedy in the film. I give Quaid a lot for doing the chops to do this film, and I loved him in Enemy Mine. So I kind of think that if we had gotten someone like Patrick Swayze, which is who the role was kind of intended for, and actually before even that, Liam Neeson was thought of for the role as well. So I'm not sure.
There was a bunch of different actors,
yeah,
that were thought of. I mean, Tom Hanks was even one too, but I don't think he could have. I don't think he could have pulled it off as having the ruggedness of a knight and having the comedy and all of that in one. So I think their best bet was with Dennis Quaid, because he was able to have that rugged look and have the comedy, but yet have the structure of being a knight.
Yeah, because this was a big budget
and I'm
deal at the time, and I can say I can believe they were going after Tom Hanks for this. This was
the
like
original
the first
guy
to have a CG character, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and the thing is, there was an original guy behind the story. What was the name of the guy? Tammy?
Okay, Patrick. Let's see, Charles Prague and Patrick Johnson were the ones that did this. They were the screenwriters. They wrote the screenplay, and this is actually not from a book at all. They wrote the screenplay, and it never was released as a novel until after the movie. So
okay, yeah, the Charles Johnson guy. He originally pitched the idea to Universal. Universal loved the idea. Him and Prague, he had written behind the movie of The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly, previously before this. So they kind of wrote the story and the Arthurian legend behind the film. And ultimately, the studio ended up having a problem with Charles Johnson and ended up just crediting him as like just the screenwriter, and like totally like wrote him out of the film and replaced him with Cohen. So,
Hey Dave,
yeah.
when you mentioned the dragon being the best you've seen, I'm sitting here thinking, what about the dragons? But so I looked it up, and yeah, it was actually 4 years later. So you're probably right about the dragon.
Well, yeah, at that point in time, there was nothing that even remotely even looked
what about Aragorn? Or was that after 96 as well?
I wish I could have seen it as a child. That would have been. I mean, 17 is still childhood, but not really.
No, you're basically an adult at 17.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have seen this at like 9 or 10. I'm sure I would have been like in love with it.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've always loved dragons, and like, I mean, I remember Pete's dragon. not the live action, the original. Still haven't seen the live action actually.
Supposedly the live action was actually good, and people just didn't really give it a chance like they should have.
I'll give it a chance. I just haven't had a chance to see it. I mean, I love most Disney stuffs, and I haven't had an issue with any of the live action I've seen so far. So I can't imagine having an issue with this one either. But
Okay,
I just think there's something about the way the dragon's facial features are. I haven't
it's
seen
definitely
anything
great.
like it.
well, his
I
facial
mean-
features were supposed to be modeled after Sean Connery. If you did any homework on that.
Good job.
Yep, that's great.
Forrest,
You
how
and
about
them.
Forrest, how about you?
Okay. This was actually my first time seeing this. I mean, I was 8 years old when this movie came out. So I'm surprised I didn't see. I'm kind of shocked I didn't see it sooner myself. But I think this movie was definitely. I think this movie, if this movie had been released a few years later, like in the midst of movies like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and Chronicles of Narnia, it probably would have been a better received movie. Or even like now in the wake of Game of Thrones, I think it would have been a much bigger. It would have been much more popular. But I do think it was a good fun fantasy film. I love a lot of the cast. Love Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid and a lot of what he's done. Sean Connery, my favorite Bond. Also love him in Rock and Hunt for Red October and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. Dina Meyer, who I think was criminally underrated in both Starship Troopers and as Batgirl in the old Birds of Prey TV series.
Oh God, I loved Birds of Prey. I wish it would have gone on.
Yeah, it
more
was
than
such a
2
great
seasons.
show.
Yeah,
Such a great show.
I'm glad. I think this is. But overall, I think this is a very entertaining. It was a very solid, entertaining adventure, fantasy adventure. Special effects are pretty good for them. For a moderately budgeted mid-90s. From being like a moderately budgeted movie from the mid-90s. Actually, I would say though Connery definitely. I think because I think it was ILM that did the special effects on this, and the motion capture, they did a pretty good job with doing the motion capture on Connery's face. The voice work definitely his voice work was definitely probably one of the best parts, as well as also the score. Also, I'm pretty sure the score for this movie has been used in a lot of movie trailers over the last 25 years.
Oh yeah, when I heard the music behind it, I was like, you know what? Some of this actually sounds like Angels in the Outfield, and I looked it up, and sure enough, the composer actually did Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah, actually, who did this? Jerry Goldsmith? No, Randy Edelman, who did Ghostbusters 2. But because I was going to say his score was also that score was also. I remember that score being used in the trailers for Mulan back in the late 90s. I think I'm kind of baffled that I didn't see this movie at a much younger age. Given that I was 8 when it came out, I'm surprised I didn't see it sooner. And I wish I had seen it sooner. But overall, good cast, good act, good special effects and action. Dustin, I do remember remember the toys. Never had any of them though.
Yeah.
I'm surprised this ended up getting relegated. This ended up just getting relegated into a direct to video and made for TV franchise and didn't become much bigger.
I can't believe there are 5 of them. That surprises me.
I know.
I knew about 3, but I didn't know there were 5.
Yep.
Damn.
So
And they're pretty cheap to get on physical media. I mean,
Yeah, the
2000s.
2020 was the 5th one. 2017 was the 4th. Not sure about the rest, but those are the ones I remembered.
Yep, and one of them was voiced by Patrick Stewart. The other 3 were voiced by Ben Kingsley, which all of those are pretty good voices.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I mean, it's too bad. This was Connery's only outing, and then they couldn't have done a prequel with all 3 of them, like maybe a prequel or a sequel with all 3 of them.
Well, I mean,
Okay, so now for me, when I first saw this, there was a lot of hype when it first came out. And I was in my early 20s and I went to go see it at the theater, and a bunch of us went to go see it. And it was sold out for the first showing on the first night at the theater we went to. So we had to buy tickets in advance to see it later on that night. And I thought right away the first time I saw it, my boyfriend at the time was a huge dragon fanatic. He collected dragons and everything. So that's why we ended up going to see it. And I was really impressed. I mean, I like dragons myself. And I have to agree with David as this when I first saw Draco, I was like, well, that is a dragon. I was impressed with how he looked. And then, of course, Sean Connery's voice as Draco really does bring out the dragon. I think that was a very good pairing to have him as the voice. And I know I've always liked things set back with the knights and, the swords and everything. So when I saw it the first time, I really liked it because it had a little bit of everything that I liked. So anybody else have anything to say before we get into the movie? Okay. So when we start out the movie, you see Conan and Einan. Conan is the played by Dennis Quaid, and Einan is the
Bowen.
Bowen.
Huh?
Bowen.
Oh,
His
Bowen.
His name's Bowen.
Bowen is Dennis Quaid, and then Einan is his protege. He's teaching him the old code. Knights the old code and how to sword fight. And his father, Einan's father, is a very tyrannical king that people do not like. So Bowen is bound and determined that Einan is not going to grow up that way.
Yep. And Mo's here.
So he's instilling this in Einan, and while they're practicing their sword fighting, there is a revolt of the peasants, and Einan and Bowen go to this, and during the revolt, the king is killed, and while Einan is looking over his father and going, "Oh, I get the crown now," basically.
Yeah. You're so
The
broken up.
peasants are still fighting, and he ends up getting injured, and he injures his heart. Now you see then later that he gets brought back to the capital, and his mother, the queen, is they say that he's beyond help. There's nothing they can do. So she says, I have something else I can do. So what does everybody think about that whole scene with the fighting
Can we have
and
Mo's
everything
first
and how?
impression first?
Yeah, can we add Mo's?
Oh yes, Mo, go ahead.
Oh, hey. Thank you. Yeah, I love Dragonheart, man. It was a good time. I saw it in the theater as a kid. I bought a bunch of the toys. Remember having a pretty dope latex Dragonheart puppet for a long time. That's really wish that I still have, but I imagine it probably would have degraded over the years, being latex and all. End up looking like an old boglin in someone's attic or something. I don't know, man. I mean, the dragon design I really enjoy. Dennis Quaid's friggin' greasy uncle mullet is pretty awesome. That's a technical marvel in itself. I don't know. See, I've always enjoyed Connery's voice as the dragon, but as time goes on, I think as an adult, it's I could see at the time maybe thinking that it was too recognizable, because it is very clearly Sean Connery, but he still does a great job, I don't know. I think that Dragonheart's just a good example of a fun fantasy film. It's not one you need to think about too much. It's kind of got that straightforward sort of fairy tale vibe to it that I enjoy. So
I think that's I think the Sean Connery voice is one reason I would say it works better for kids, because I had absolutely no idea who Sean Connery was until like 5 years ago.
yeah, I mean, I knew of him, but not enough to recognize his voice. I think at that point I maybe had seen a James Bond movie with my dad or something, but the only thing I'd seen him regularly in was Darby O'Gill and the Little People. And he's pretty young
Classic.
in that, so his voice isn't quite
I was gonna
on
say
the
you didn't.
same level,
You hadn't seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade by that time.
Probably not at the age when I saw Dragonheart. No, I only had Temple of Doom for years,
Great
so
movie.
that was the one that I watched constantly was that one. But
Jacob is here as well, guys.
it had a big old stain from a dilly bar that I let melt on the sleeve.
No. Well, at
Good
at that age, like you don't really recognize or even you don't recognize actors by name at that kind of age. It's kind of like that
It
voice
depends.
it's like that voice is familiar.
Yeah, there might have been
kind
a
of
touch of
thing.
that, but yeah, you're onto something there. I don't think I wasn't consciously aware of who it was at 8 years old, so it was like
Exactly.
it just worked. But as an adult, I could see like if I was the age I am now, like seeing it when it was new, I would have been like, oh, that is just way too Sean Connery, But you could tell I think he was enjoying it. So it's a fun movie. It's got a fun spirit to it. I don't imagine too many people working on it wouldn't have had a fun time to some extent, other than I guess there was some behind the scenes nonsense with the guy that created it in Universal, but other than him, I'm sure everyone else had a blast,
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, Jake, thanks for joining us. What are your first impressions?
All right. Oh, I guess I came a little late to the party. Sorry about that. Well, this one is kind of a weird one for me because, contrary to what Mo and Dustin were just saying, I was very well aware of who Sean Connery was when this movie came out. And I had seen Last Crusade a few times. And honestly, this was around the beginning of the end where Connery went so far up his own ass that he kind of ended his career not long after this. But I think this was the same year as The Rock, which was a solid film and what have you.
Yeah, that year.
And so I heard that he was doing the voice of the dragon, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And I remember seeing some of the toys on the shelves. Like there was definitely some merch for this. And I was at that age where that still kind of was a thing. Although I don't remember ever actually getting any of the Dragonheart merch. But even though it was on my radar from the beginning, I really don't know that. I don't know if this was a first viewing. I went into this thinking it was like, oh man, I'm finally going to watch Dragonheart. I'm finally going to get around to it. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, I swear I've seen this before.
I'm right with you, brother. I felt the same way. I thought I hadn't seen it. I'm like, oh, I'm finally going to get to see it. And then, oh, I did see this.
I mean, and it's not just because it does borrow from a lot of tropes. I really genuinely think I saw this movie somewhere along the line. And I'm like, I don't know, Brandon, did you show it to me and I forgot that you did? Or did...
I didn't know this for a long time.
The way
I
this
feel like it
movie
was on
is,
TV a bunch for a while, though.
Well, I
don't-
could have seen it in parts.
the way this movie is, I wonder if it borrow from tropes, or is it the source of tropes?
Both, I'm sure. It definitely borrowed heavily. I think one of the reasons why Connery was cast was probably because this was in the wake of First Night. I mean, that was 3 years before this, something like that. And
came out the previous year.
was that the previous year? Okay, then this was in the wake of that. Yeah.
1995.
So I think the idea of a medieval set movie with Connery was kind of like the thing at the time. And I had seen First Night, and that was probably one of the things that had my interest up.
Also, he had Robin Hood a few years earlier than that.
Right, definitely. And
that was Robin and Marion.
Oh, I was
that was a few years earlier. I think he's talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right?
Yeah, I was talking about Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, because he was King Arthur in Robin Hood and Prince of Thieves.
Not Arthur.
King Richard.
King Richard.
Yeah. But yes, I did see Robin and Marion, and I was kind of bored by it, honestly. I need to see it again. But way, long and short of it, I did not. At the time, I think I probably knew who Dennis Quaid was, but I really didn't know the rest of the cast. And this time, it really was a treat seeing some of these people, like my little icon there, Dina Meyer, who starred in the Birds of Prey TV series. You got two of the Harry Potter. What?
I was going to say Starship Troopers.
Well, I still haven't seen that, honestly.
She was Dizzy in Starship Troopers, wasn't she?
Yeah. I believe so.
Mm-hmm. No wonder she looks so familiar. I kept staring at her, being like, "Why do I know her?"
She's got some beautiful red hair.
Yes.
She is a very attractive woman.
I gotta see Starship Troopers, Jacob.
I know. I need to.
I wish we would more for his back.
Be aware that it's a satire,
right? And then, of course,
it's a real,
And then, of course, it was kind of fun seeing a couple of the, the folks that I will always say, oh, it's got the this and this from Harry Potter, But you had Lupin and Lucius Malfoy both in this one, and that's kind of fun. So there was
I missed
other than the strange sense of deja vu. It was a very enjoyable viewing. I did like it. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's one I would have enjoyed if I'd seen it back. If I had seen it, it could have become a favorite. I have the feeling this is one that easily would age with nostalgia if you got it at just the right age.
Oh, yeah.
So I missed that boat, but still, I definitely enjoyed it. Whether I had seen it before or not, now I know I have. And I'm glad to finally be able to put that question to rest. And I do agree with the idea that the dragon does sound very, very, very much like Sean Connery. And that's, on the one hand, I give them props for not distorting the voice into weird places they shouldn't go with voices like they often do with these kind of creatures. But on the other hand, it sounds so much like Sean Connery that I'm like, couldn't a little bit of sound adjustment been thought of for
I
a dragon?
I love the fact that it was Sean Connery as the dragon.
Yeah.
Well, they did it, so hopefully somebody can
I like the way they did it. I think
old man
it just added to the dragon. It added to his personality.
There was a BBC Merlin series where there was a dragon with the voice of the storyteller,
right.
The Jim Henson storyteller.
Yep.
Right.
Behind it, and they didn't change his voice for nothing, and I thought it was great.
Yeah,
it can work. It can work. I think, and I think here it kind of does work because he is kind of an oddball dragon in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it's kind of works. Anyway.
I mean, he came up with the idea of faking killing him and making good money and stuff. And, it was just funny just because he didn't feel like killing him. And,
okay, we'll get to that in a moment. So, anyways, any other comments before we continue on with the story?
Well, we haven't been able to make the joke since Inner Space, but I still like the idea of swapping Quaids in these movies. So just imagine, if you will, this with Randy Quaid.
Oh
in the
my
lead
god,
role.
no.
Yes.
That would have been a
This
different
place saying
movie.
shitter's full.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah, except let's put his whole kidnapped by aliens self in there.
Yeah, that subplot gets to stay. We'll just put him in there. We'll deep fake Connery's old man head onto the dragon. I think it would be a masterpiece. So,
Okay.
get on it, internet.
He needs to have that full wild beard, the Quaid wild beard.
Okay, so we have Einan injured and his mother, the Queen Aislinn. They go on this trip down to this cave, and she doesn't tell anybody where they're going or why. And when they get there, she starts talking to the old one, and you can't see him. It's Draco, and she asks. He's like, you know what you ask of me, and she says yes. And he checks the wound, and he makes Einan promise to follow the old code, and so then he opens up his chest and gives Einan part of his heart, and he says, "Half my heart to make you whole, its strength to purify your weakness. Live and remember your oath." And from there, we see Einan grow up afterwards, and he turns out to be just as much of a tyrant as his father. So Bowen believes that the heart of the dragon corrupted him, and he's making it his mission to destroy all the dragons, because Bowen taught Einan, the old code, and it had to be the dragon. The dragon corrupted him. And it's his mission to destroy every dragon out there until he rids all of them, including the one that corrupted Einan. On his journey to destroy all dragons, he comes across Father Gilbert while he is chasing a dragon. And Father Gilbert, you see him on his donkey, and he's trying to write all his nice little things and rhyme everything. And here comes the dragon, and here comes Bowen, and he just goes right after. So, what do you think about that when Bowen is chasing the dragon down to kill him, and here he's got Father Gilbert right on his heels? What do you do? What do you think of Father Gilbert and everybody?
I'd like to say something about the first scene. With when I first saw the sun running down when the king was taken down, which I cheered at because I knew the king was such a prick, but I thought he was actually going down because his father was there and he wanted to make sure his father was okay until he grabbed the crown and ripped it from his dead cold hands, or not quite dead cold hands, and then I realized, wow, he just only gave a shit about the crown.
Right.
And then when the girl popped down and accidentally knocked him into the spikes, which eventually killed him.
That is
accidentally,
and we do.
That is a good moment when his father's trying to hold on to the crown and he's just screaming at him, "It's mine!"
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It really shows you. It really tells you a lot about this person's character.
Oh yeah,
you can tell he's going to grow up to be David.
Right then, he's just a fucking bastard.
And you could even the first scene where you're introduced, where he's fighting, where Bowen's training him. You can tell there that this kid is a sniveling little brat, and he's a little bit. There's something a little off about him. But then when you see that, you really and I'm gonna say I think Bowen is not exactly a great judge of character.
Yeah.
He blamed the dragons.
To the kid.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did anybody actually watch this film and go, man, this guy was really a nice, good person until that Dragonheart?
No. And on the
he was also a different actor than he was when he was older.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so was the Kara in the beginning scenes.
right.
Young Kara was played by a different girl too.
It'd been pretty sweet if they just had the adult versions of them playing when
They
they
did
were
a good
kids,
job with the casting because
Yeah.
they did a good job with it
Right.
because it's harder to tell that it's not the
Right.
same person.
So you
can
do,
tell, but
yeah.
they did a
You
good
definitely
job.
have David Thewlis as Einan, and he is a very gifted actor. And like I said, Dina Meyer's Kara. And I do want to say on the scene that Tammy was just asking about with the introduction of Father Gilbert, I had also seen Pete Postlethwaite's name in the cast, and I was like, this is gonna be good. Gilbert amused me. He really amused me. He was maybe also not the best judge of character either, but in his case, it led to some comedy value, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I now the captain of the guard, I saw him and I'm like, oh, I don't know his real name, but I recognize him mostly from he's in a lot of movies. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like he
You talking
plays
about Brock?
several different vampires. I always picture him as a vampire because he just played. He did such a great job playing the vampires. But yeah, he always plays usually a bad guy, and he's a big, strong guy. He always plays like a villain.
Well,
he's really good at it.
Brian Thompson. His big old
Is that his
lips.
name?
He's in Dr. Mordred as the main villain, so you'll dig that.
Yeah,
He's always
like I
fun,
said, I
man.
didn't
He
know
looks
his
like he
name,
would
but
just
I
destroy
know
you.
his face.
I'm sure he's a sweet man. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm
he
thinking.
he
I'm
plays
thinking
those
he's
big bruiser
probably one
guys
of the
real
kindest
well.
guys around because he always plays such a prick.
And speaking of people who play pricks, of course, you got Lord Felton, who's also the, I guess, the main ally of the of Einan, like his.
He's kind of like a lord on the land,
right?
And,
right.
He's kind of like the landlord of the king.
Right.
He makes people
his
pay their taxes.
So his Sheriff Nottingham, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Which, and of course, he's played by Jason Isaacs, who, again, I mean, Lucius Malfoy and so many other. Oh, he's so much younger. But he has made and then, well, let's see. He was Hook in the 2003 Peter Pan. He has made a career of playing slimy villains, definitely. It's always fun to see him do another one.
Okay, so then moving on, Brother Gilbert decides he's gonna basically be following Bowen around, and they get to
scribbling his adventures, basically.
Correct. And we get to this waterfall watering area, and they're sitting there talking because he says that there's a dragon behind the waterfall, and Brother Gilbert is sitting on this stone, and he keeps trying to get his quill to work, and he keeps hitting the stone. And then that is how we end up meeting Draco to begin with, because it wasn't stone he was sitting on. He was sitting on the dragon. And the dragon gets up and goes in the waterfall, and that's when Bowen and Draco have their the beginning of their huge confrontation. He goes behind the waterfall to join him, and it's a matter of wits. And it just goes on from there, where he chases after him. He gets pulled off of his horse. Draco takes him for a nice ride in the forest.
And I had to say, hey, he became the first George of the Jungle.
I just love that line. Come visit the woods. He's bashing him in the trees.
Come visit the woods.
So good.
Yes.
He smacks him into trees and stuff, and he's like, it was so funny. He was taunting him the whole time that he's knocking him into trees and stuff.
And I like the grappling thing that he eventually caught one of his legs with, because it was like some kind of spindle thing that was like in a side saddle that just shot out and grabbed his foot. It must have been mechanical.
As mechanical as could be at that time, yes. But eventually, they end up in this clearing where the Battle of Wits comes down to even more of one, as he's trying to get Bowen with his tail, and he finally has enough and picks Bowen up in his mouth, and now we have the real fun begin. How long can you know, I can stay awake for 3 days. I can stay awake for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's classic.
If your sword goes up, my mouth comes down. If your mouth comes down, my sword goes up. And you know, they're back and forth, and then enough is enough. He knocks him out of his mouth, and this is where they come up with what they're going to do. Because he's the last knight of the old code, and he is the last dragon. So where do we go from here is what they basically decide.
Don't forget he spits on him when he's in his mouth still.
Yeah, and right before that he does something to his privates. So he's sitting on the damn tongue while he's talking, and so his crotch has got to hurt while that tongue is moving.
Yeah, I love how
I would have never thought of that.
the dragon's
That's,
like, can you get off my
weird.
tongue? Can you get off my tongue? He's like, why should you be comfortable? I'm in yours. Slobber.
My armor is rusting in your drool.
Yeah, that's what he said. Great banter between the two.
Oh man,
So they
it's like
just-
the way Connery records the dialogue while he's in his mouth too. It's like it sounds like they stuck something in his mouth in the booth or something.
Yeah.
Like, can
Yeah.
you imagine sitting there watching that? Like, that dude's knighted, you know? Like, it's
Yeah, he really
Her
did
Sean
sound like
Connery
it.
just cotton balls in his mouth. Fucking
He
voice
could be
of the
sword
dragon.
He could be sword swallowing while he's talking in the mouth, talking into the mic.
Dude.
Sean Connery was straight.
It's such a. I mean, it doesn't matter. Sword swallowing. I don't think. That was more on me than Dave. But it's
What?
you know, the whole scam they come up with is genius, and I gotta wonder if anyone's ever tried to pull it in a D&D game. I'm definitely going to. If I ever encounter a
that'd be great.
dragon, I'm gonna introduce the option. You know, like, can I maybe Dragonheart this shit? You know.
Yeah, that was a fun aspect where the dragon did that.
I seem to remember Dragonheart being a Super Nintendo game as well.
Yeah, PlayStation, Sega,
Probably.
Saturn for sure. I'm sure it came out on Game Boy and a couple other things. I think it's called Fire and Ice or Fire and Steel or something like that. Yeah, Fire and Steel.
Fire and Steel for PS1.
So
You never
on one
played
of
it.
these quests that they've come
In
up
Game
with
Boy.
about how the dragon attacks and Bowen comes in, saves the day, and then he gets paid. One of them takes us to Kara's village, and they're not very happy with her, and they're throwing all kinds of vegetables at her and everything else. And here comes the dragon, and Bowen suggests, well, you could give me one of your 3 daughters to one of these gentlemen, or I heard dragons are impartial to sacrifices. So what do? They send her out there as a sacrifice, and Bowen's telling Draco that, and Draco is like, well, who gave him that idea? And he's like, what am I supposed to do with her? And he goes, eat her. And he's like, yuck. And he was like, well, you didn't have any problem with Sir Gregomore? And he goes, I just merely chewed in self-defense. I did not swallow. So he goes and takes Kara, and the next thing Bowen knows, here's Draco singing to her, and the two of them are sitting there, and Bowen is like, you should have eaten her. And then our Einen comes along again. And Einen and Bowen actually get into a fight, and Draco makes himself well known to Einen because he jumps in the way to protect Bowen. So now everybody is very well aware of Draco.
Yeah.
We also failed to mention that her father is enslaved in working to build the new Camelot, basically the new castle, at least.
I admit that that thing where he's talking about, because it's a child's movie for the most part, but the thing where he's basically burning out the eyes,
Yeah,
and even going towards it, just the suggestion of that is, I mean, not very much for this group, but for a young child like 8 or 9, that's a little bit. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sure it had some type of awesome influence on me. I don't know.
Well,
if you're a
just like
medieval,
he
like
said
corrupt king, I guess you just burn people's eyes out. That's what you do, you know.
Well, when he shoots an arrow in her father and said he's always thought of death as a release.
Oh,
You
it
know,
is.
that just
Technically, he's right, but
Well, and
still fucked up.
Iden also has that little moment where he plants a kiss on Kara before she escapes. So he is actually after her already once she escapes from him. So it's no wonder that he came across them in the intending to find her, because he even said, Bowen, you kidnapped my future wife or something like that.
Yeah.
He's about to enact some prima nocta on that ass.
I think he said, you have found a girl I've lost.
He did, and then Dennis Quaid character said, Bowen said, I think she wants to stay lost.
Actually, you know what's weird is a movie I always confuse this with is Dragon Slayer. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that film.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Dragon Slayer is gross, though. I don't like Dragon Slayer.
A slightly older
That's
film.
rad.
Dragon Slayer is an awesome movie.
I don't like some of their choices. Let's put it that way.
Oh, it's an older. It's an older film.
So, what does everybody think of our characters so far? And Iden and Kara and Draco and
Kara's cool. Iden's a
Brother
dick.
Gilbert
Draco's
and
awesome.
Bowen.
Well,
Bowen's great.
Draco's not quite Draco yet. He's just Dragon at the moment.
We're calling him Dragon.
It wasn't until they were bonding in a moment in a campfire that he chose to call him.
Stop calling me Dragon. So you wish to call me Dragon in a different tongue? Right.
Right.
No, I like it.
I actually kind of like that moment where like Bowen's all proud of this name he came up with. It's and admittedly Draco does sound better as a name than just Dragon, but it's like, but after he explained it, Draco's like, yeah, so you're calling me Dragon in a different tongue. He's like, yeah. it's like I guess I hadn't thought about that. It kind of was amusing. It was like
I would have definitely done the same thing.
But it sounds, isn't that how it is with a lot of people though?
Yeah.
We like these names that we put out there, and all it is just the same thing, just in a different language. But it sounds cooler to us because it's a different language.
Exactly.
Right.
Whereas people with that language are like, why are you naming your dragon Dragon? Only they say Draco and Draco, whatever, you know.
And right before he names him, we have that scene where he actually, Einan gets stabbed by Kara, and you see the connection. That's the first time you see a connection between Draco and Einan.
Yeah.
Because Draco feels the same pain.
Yeah, they're connected by the heart.
Which the original Guy Johnson, his original concept was all he had for the concept was just the last dragon and the last knight coming to a battle and he had the idea of him being in the dragon's mouth and all of that. He just didn't have the beginning, the Arthurian myth stuff, and the ending to the films. So it's when he got together with the other writer, Pogue, is when the magic started to happen, So other than that, I mean, it actually sounded like the guy like really was like a big part of the film before they dropped him. So.
Oh yeah, I think he still plans on remaking it or something. I think I read that on the wiki. It's been an idea that's been kicked around,
Yeah, I believe there was something in the works as of 2018, still kind of an idea rolling around, but nothing sticking yet.
I mean, it'd be cool. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be remade, but why not? It's also not a movie that I think anybody would have a problem with a remake of. Just update the effects and new cast and all that.
Yeah.
It could be fun.
Actually, one thing that I could say, I just wanted to throw one thing on the remake idea. I like the IMDb thing that says that the producers originally cast Liam Neeson as Bowen, but the studio didn't think audiences would buy him as an action hero.
Well,
wow.
There was also the fact that he had just gotten done with Darkman at the time,
right?
And
but
they didn't think that he had the clout to do it after such a long ordeal that he had to deal with there.
Right. But basically, I thought that was kind of hilarious. But also, I was just going to say, I think if they did do a remake, it would be nice to throw him a bone and maybe in the role of Draco or whatever. But,
I feel like I want to say I read that's part of the plan.
Because
he was originally supposed to be in the movie,
But yeah, it's always fun to hear what the producers think when it's blatantly wrong.
Especially when you got them thinking of other people like Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the ones.
Oh yeah, I saw one of the people who
Cohen's character.
Well, him I could see for action, but one of the people I think who nearly got the role was Rob. I'm like, Robin Williams is an action hero? I don't know about that.
You never know.
Well, maybe.
Sometimes people surprise you, and of course, Robin Williams has a range that most people don't give him credit for.
But if you think about who if the producers are going to poo-poo this one, the audience will never buy him as an action hero, and I'm like, okay, Liam Neeson, no. Robin Williams, yes. I want to know their thought process.
Kevin James had our jaws on the floor in that first Paul Blart movie.
Well, that's true.
Like, we had no idea he had that in him in any way.
And then he did the second movie, and my jaw was on the floor for a very different reason.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's shockingly bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we see this scene that's a very moving scene where Draco ends up taking Kara, Bowen, and Father Gilbert to Old Avalon, and you get to see all the old, the statues of all the old knights and everything, and they're trying to agree with this plan of trying to get the peasants to take back the castle. And Bowen just doesn't know what to think about everything, and he's hearing in his head the whole thing about the old code. A knight is sworn to valor. His heart knows only virtue. His blade defends the helpless. His might upholds the weak. His word speaks only truth. His wrath undoes the wicked. And he keeps hearing this. And finally, he decides that he is going to go back to following the code. And they start training, they go back and they start training the peasants to go against King Einan. And we get some very comical parts in this where they're teaching Brother Gilbert how to shoot an arrow. And
Turns out he's really good at it.
Beginner's luck. Try
Right.
again.
His first shot hits the training dummy directly in the forehead. It's kind of incredible.
And the second one hits him directly in the balls.
Both kill shots, you know.
Brother,
I'll take
you're
you
a
down.
natural.
Right. So they do decide to go and invade the castle. And during the invasion, as it's winding down, Einan gets struck with an arrow, and Draco is flying above the castle. And they have his mother, Einan's mother, the queen, has gotten dragon slayers.
Not to
And they're
mention Brother Gilbert's commentary throughout the that whole battle scene. I mean, I guess he's supposed to be like this ex-monk / scribe. So the things that he's saying are more biblical. So he said, he says, "Turn the other cheek, brother."
as he gets somebody in the rear end, yes.
He's
Thou
it
shalt
feels
not
like he's
kill.
having trouble actually killing people in this battle.
Oh, yeah.
So all his shots are like non-lethal. The only lethal shot he takes is at Einan.
And that's when Einan realizes about the dragon.
We did skip a whole scene where one of the village they tried to fool realized the dragon wasn't dead because they were trying to eat him. And
I did like that because they were like cannibals at that point. They didn't care what it was. They were
Oh my god, I can't believe we forgot that. That's probably my favorite scene where they see the dragon falls in the river, he doesn't sink, and they just look at it and go, meat. Like in excitement.
Meat.
And then like the dragon flies away and they look like hurt and disappointed. And they turn it to Bowen, meat. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
what do we do now? We run.
One scene I forgot to mention too, which is actually one of my favorites of David's, is one of the first times that he invades a village and he comes up out of the water and his head's just above the water and he sees all the sheep. And he goes, "Oh, hello." And he's just got this smile on his face.
Hello.
But anyways, Einan gets shot in the heart, and as he gets shot in the heart, he sees the dragon fall. And then Einan puts 2 and 2 together and realizes he needs to get back to the castle to stop the dragon slayers.
Yeah,
and his mother is hired.
Yeah, and actually that's kind of a good point to mention that his mother went out and hired these supposedly really great dragon slayers. And you come to realize that she wasn't trying to kill any dragons, obviously, but
she wanted to kill her son.
She was looking looking supportive. Well, yeah, she had her own thing going.
And I thought that was kind of, and again, it's been years since I've seen this film, so it's kind of cool because I got to watch it more like it was new. And I thought, oh, she's pulling one over on him. As soon as she hired those dragon slayers, because I thought he doesn't know the connection, but she does.
Well, yeah.
And you don't really watching it know how deep the connection is until that moment. When you see Einan get shot, you see Draco fall. If you thought that there was a connection, you really know it then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows it after that point, too. It's like, wait, I'm immortal if this dragon stays alive. This dragon needs to stay alive.
Forever. As he puts it.
And so,
any other comments on the fight or things coming up to this point where Einen realizes about the dragon?
Not that I know of.
So Einen gets back to the castle. He confronts his mother about why she got the dragon slayers. And he even says, "Oh, how motherly of you."
Well, she tries to kill Draco with his permission, with a spear before Einen comes in and catches her, and then they have that conversation.
Right.
I mean, if he was
Well,
something, he might
and she
set
said,
you know,
and she said was that she was going to try to correct a mistake that she made years ago.
Yep. How motherly of you.
How motherly of you.
And
Yep.
Einen killed her, like, off camera, which was pretty
So
fucked up.
everybody goes to save the dragon. And
The dragon.
Well, not everybody, just the 3 arrows. The rest of the fucking people were too chicken shit.
Well, I think there's like a big battle still going on, like outside the
Oh yeah, they're
castle.
still fighting.
No,
So
oh,
what
yeah.
that's what they're doing.
They all
And the reason why they came in
they said
is
anyone
because
else
they
going
had
with, and they always looked down like they didn't want to go save the dragon, even though the dragon saved them.
so then the big battle ensues inside, though, between
Mm-hmm.
Kara and Bowen and Einen.
I
Right.
wanted to say this. I thought that the one thing I thought that was interesting is looking at this dude. You would have thought he would have been played as just this very soft, can't do anything for himself nobleman, but
Right.
he's actually pretty vicious and deadly with a weapon himself.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
actually not a bad combatant. He's
Yeah, he even bested Bonin.
Well, he was a good student in some ways. Like he, the kind of student that would take what he wanted to and ignore the rest.
Yeah,
And
he
he
used him for what
definitely-
he needed.
And as far as the battle in the castle, I do want to mention one of the reasons why I enjoyed Kara is she's kind of a badass. And we have this part where, we mentioned that Gilbert seems to be a natural with arrows, but Kara's apparently a natural with little hand axes and whatever.
Well, yeah, it's like the pudding.
she has her nice. I believe, if I remember correctly, that she was the one that takes out Brock, and and then takes his big axe and just goes around using that.
And I love how he's like a girl, a girl.
Yeah, that was great.
And right before she gets him, she's holding that up, and he's like, "Oh, he's all cocky. Let me cut that down to size for you."
Right.
That just made it easier for her to swing it into him.
I was going to say he probably did help a little bit. I mean, he cut a few inches off that pole. It may have helped to handle better. I don't know, but
I mean, probably.
Yeah. So I just thought that was pretty fun, definitely. And overall, that battle scene, it should be probably mentioned that Einen's forces got pretty well routed. They, obviously they took a lot of people out with them, but they definitely got maneuvered in that battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because Einen actually retreated.
Yeah, he called for a retreat.
Oh yeah, of course he did.
Well, I mean, he may have been good in battle, but he was also smart enough to know that they were getting their ass kicked and to call retreat. He didn't let his pride take his place. Like, he didn't really care about pride. He didn't really care about. He just cared about what he wanted, But yeah, so he was smart. He was smart, and he was a good fighter. So he was a good villain. He had all the characteristics of a really good villain there. He doesn't look like he's a good villain. He doesn't look like he's a much of a fighter or all that intelligent, but
shit, that haircut's savage, bro.
Yeah. It totally throws you off. You think he's a fancy boy or something.
It's like
Well,
the
it's just
medieval
like
bowl
all,
cut. You always see those in these movies. I feel like it's so their hair could still be long, but it's not in their face when they're in a helmet or whatever. But it's basically a medieval bowl cut. You know that someone just shears it off with a dagger or something.
It's
not
that
a real
helmet cut.
haircut. Yeah.
So it's
I
just
didn't,
like
Inan
any villain.
kind of reminds me of that, the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, it's just like any villain if you think about it. Most villains, most tyrants in history or current times are always cowards at heart. Or at
Yeah,
least the heart
typically.
wasn't the dragon anyway.
Okay, so
Well-
we got the. Go ahead.
And we have the whole scene of Draco actually being bothered and not having the ability to do anything to save the mother from her
From Einen.
yeah. So
Yeah, when
I think that was
Einen
kind
kills
of
her off
heart-wrenching.
screen with that axe, and that was pretty grim. Like that's you kind of wince at that scene. It's like, ew.
Yeah,
Right.
it's pretty rough.
So the whole battling scene going on at the castle, and they think that they've killed Einen, and Draco is trying to tell Bowen, "No, you didn't. As long as I live, he lives," and he's trying to get it through Bowen's head that he has to kill him in order to kill Einen, and Bowen does not want to hear any of this, and he is doing everything he can to make Bowen kill him. He shoots fire at him, everything. And when Einen shows back up and takes Kara, he realizes that Einen is still alive, of course. And one of the last scenes you see is Einen is running towards Bowen, and Bowen is sitting here, and Drake's got his heart open. Draco's got his heart open, and Bowen and Einen is running, and Bowen finally has to make the decision, and he kills Draco.
Yeah, so throw the axe at Draco's open heart. It was pretty
That's
sad.
to me, that's one of the saddest scenes. I don't like that scene, but
I mean, it has to happen though.
Chokes me up. He's in the stars, you know. It's fine.
I like how whenever you have the heart open, you hear that big loud heartbeat. That you can hear. You heard it like when he put it into Einen. You heard it when he opened it up to show Einen who's boss at the waterfall, and then you heard it again here when he opened up his heart there.
Right.
so then at the very end, Draco's essence goes up to the stars, and he becomes part of the stars, which is what he's named after, the star constellation. And everybody lives happily ever after, basically. So what does everybody think about the ending, or do you have any other comments about what led up to it?
Oh, it's usually chokes me up pretty good. You know, I enjoy a sad ending when it's like sad, happy like that. I suppose. I gotta wonder if like he can have some sweet Mufasa conversations with Draco afterwards. That'd be dope.
For me, it's kind of like the bittersweet ending in the way that Terminator 2 ended, where good triumphed over evil at the expense of a beloved hero.
Right.
Remember.
Well, and actually, I don't think that Mo made the Lion King connection, but there's kind of a similar-ish story that earlier on that Draco had told, I think, to Bowen about what happens to dragons when they die, and I feel like we skipped over that. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
That's the constellation thing where he started looking up at the stars. Then he even references it again when he's asking the mother, "Are the stars out tonight?"
Right.
And so that it can be shown.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we
it's a
did skip
nice
over that.
little, it is a nice little callback then to that scene when they do that. So it's
Well,
kind of fun.
that's around the time that he named them because of those stars that they
Right.
Yeah,
that spoke of.
the stars were called Draco, and so that's why the dragon said, even though it's Draco in another language, dragon in another language, he'd be proud to be named after the constellation.
No, I don't think I have anything else.
I
It's
guess
just a
we need
solidly
to.
put together movie, man. I mean, it doesn't
Get into
linger
production then?
super long either. You know,
It is very sad when the dragon dies. Well, we haven't done favorite scenes yet.
Well, we do
No.
production
No,
first,
No.
then music,
yeah.
and then favorite scenes.
Well, yeah. So, what does everybody think of the production? I honestly think that they did a very good job. As far as I think where they filmed it, that they had beautiful scenery for this.
Oh yeah.
As to where they filmed it, we know that there's some CGI because of the dragon period, but I think they made him seem as realistic as possible, and I think he's one of the more realistic looking dragons that you will see in film.
yeah. I mean, for its
I
especially
think
for its
on,
time, it looked good. You know, that's probably the only thing I could say as a complaint about the movie, and it's not even really a complaint; it's more of an observation. But the CG is aged a little bit. You know, it doesn't look as good as I remember it looking like on a big screen in the mid '90s. You know, but it still looks good. They clearly put a lot of effort and care into designing and animating the dragon. You know.
Well, I do believe I'm double checking, but I do believe that IMDb made the claim in its trivia that this is like the first quote realistic dragon in a movie, and it definitely is much more so than just about anything that had come before.
Yeah,
and I do think some of it's a little dated. But overall, I mean, for the 90s, especially for something that wasn't like a top flight Spielberg type production or James Cameron type production,
right?
George
this
Lucas
was pretty darn good overall in terms of the way it looks, I think.
Yeah, it's aged in that perfectly understandable way, not in that way where you look at it and you're like, God damn, how did we ever think
exactly.
this was cool? You know,
Exactly.
Like, it still looks cool. It's just you can tell it's from 1996. You know.
Yeah, it's definitely still holds up. I think. I mean, definitely.
Right.
I still don't think they've topped it yet, at least in my mind.
Oh no, they topped it right away in Dungeons and Dragons, man. Those dragons were fucking. That was the best thing about that movie. The movie kind of sucked, but the dragons were awesome. And then in The Hobbit with Smog, they did even better.
Yeah, so, I think that they did top it in The Hobbit.
I mean, Smog is an amazing dragon. Like, I love Smog.
Yeah.
The first Dungeons and Dragons movie, movie sucked, but the dragons were fucking top.
Yeah, he's glorious, Dustin.
I think
I wish I could have afforded the incredibly expensive way to workshop like maquette that they had of Desolation of Smog. I think it was like $2,000 or something, but it was like a 3-foot statue of that Smog design.
Yeah, that would be dope.
I remember when they had the D&D miniatures for the 3rd edition when they first came out, and everybody was after that freaking dragon because they tried to do them to scale generally. So, of course, the dragon was massive compared to the regular figures. And they slacked off on the detail on later series, but that first series, the detail work was amazing.
I'd definitely love to have that.
Oh, it was beautiful. I had it one time, but those days.
Yeah, when I played D&D, figurine stuff wasn't really a thing. So later on, when I heard that people use figurine stuff, I'm like, why? Like, I didn't get it because then I started seeing some of the artwork on them. I'm like, wow, they are pretty beautiful, and I can see why people want to use them in maps and stuff. But yeah, we played a lot more basic when we played. There was like no visual aids much. except maybe some maps or stuff here and there. But yeah, it was definitely I definitely see how people enjoy it though.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of those Draco figures were repurposed for some low budget D&D games at some point.
Oh
I
yeah,
definitely could see that. I mean, I never knew there was any. I had no
Yeah,
idea
he'd
there
be
was
a fine
Dragonheart
dragon
toys
for a campaign.
or anything
Why
like
not?
that until you guys were talking about it. Like I said, I was busy working and everything. I was young and I was busy with working or friends or whatever. So I didn't have time for that much movies or toys or anything, you know, early 20s. So I didn't know about all that merchandise and stuff.
There's still one thing I would like to find. That when they used to do Hero Clicks, they briefly had something called Horror Clicks, which was a horror miniatures game. And I'm still looking for the Great Cthulhu, which was a promo figure that you could get from us for if you were a store, you could get a special Horror Clicks figure, the Great Cthulhu. And it was a functional game piece, but it was scaled to the size of Cthulhu to the other game pieces. It was like 3 feet. It was like 3 feet tall, and your average horror click was like an inch tall.
Yeah, that would.
It was insane. Like
That would
I
kind of
never
dominate
found
the
it.
board.
kind of like the Galactus click and the Marvel one.
Yeah.
That thing was freaking huge. 3 feet, but it was definitely a good 1.5 feet, which compared to the others is still massive.
One thing I
they
wanted
have a-
to say.
Well, it was technically only about a foot tall, but then when you add the wings on it,
Did they have a Tiamat
Was
one?
that Dave?
there was a Tiamat figure I think I saw actually.
I would love to have a Tiamat one. Like Tiamat was
As we
so
press
fucking
on
badass.
dragons.
7-headed fucking dragon.
One thing I wanted to say in relation to Draco is I always felt like the way his stance was next to Bowen, it reminded me of Aslan from the Chronicles of Narnia. The way that he stood.
I think that's
just
what,
kind of
that's what they were
majestic.
going for, like design and like vibe.
I could see that.
I like that one part where they're walking in the field together, and he's walking alongside Bowen, and just it looked so natural. He just was walking alongside of him like that, and I was like, that was for many times. It was like one of my favorite scenes, just the way they were walking like that. You know, I thought it looked very realistic.
Yeah, it is nice.
So, about the score, well, we already touched on who was behind it. What did everybody think about it? I mean, David mentioned about whenever you saw Draco's heart, did you always heard the heartbeat? Which I thought that was a nice touch.
I agree.
And I think
Right.
there was a lot of the music kind of was from that time, the type of thing, when it was the fun part, like when Father Gilbert would be would be coming along with the donkey, and then when they're just like walking around, you could hear that kind of set back in that time type of music. The real light, carefree.
Definitely had a good score.
Yeah, the score definitely added to the movie. I mean, you definitely know there was a score in this one, but it just added to it. It didn't distract from the movie at all. It just added to it very well. Very well, like they used to do in like older movies. So it was really well done. I really enjoyed it, and the beating of the heart was definitely louder, like David said, and I thought that was really a cool addition they did.
And you can tell when Draco was around and he was going to be doing something, because you could hear that in that score.
Yeah, it was a good fantasy movie score. I can't really say much more about that, but I do think that
it's not like iconic or anything. It's no Lord of the Rings, but it's serviceable, and like Carl said, it doesn't distract, but it adds a good flavor to it.
Right.
That's good. Yeah.
It's not one I'd be picking up the LP of anytime soon or anything, but
well, no, but
no.
I think it might be if, like, let's say if if you were really young when you saw this, and this was something like, because I do think this is one that could make a big impression on any child that sees this movie, because there's enough of it there that it does make an impression. Like, if I was a kid, I would have identified very well with the dragon. I identified somewhat, but I think as a kid, I would have identified really well with the dragon, and and it would have just stuck with me. Even to this day, I think I would have been fairly impressed with it.
Oh, it holds up, dude. I mean, I've shown it to my
it
kid
does
and
hold.
like my
The
little
effects do
cousins and
hold up.
stuff. And they dig
And you can't say that for many. Look at Lawnmower Man.
it. Hell yeah. Masterpiece.
Okay, should we go into our favorite scenes then? Why don't we
Sure.
start off with you, Forrest?
Favorite scenes. Oh god. I think for me, it's actually probably when Draco sacrifices himself, and the score the accompanying score that plays with it, which we were talking about this earlier in the show, like how it's how it's played in like every other movie trailer for the last 25 years. Like it's I think I'm just trying to explain this, but I guess just for me, it was mainly the music though. Like the way it plays within the scene, and also how it's pretty apparent. It's a very timeless. It's
Timeless.
timeless. Yes.
Okay. How about you, Dave?
I'm gonna have to go with any commentary from Brother Gilbert, and as far as favorite scene, I'm gonna have to harken back to the whole Bowen sitting on his tongue and that whole moment where they're just sitting there, kind of like at a draw.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Okay. How about you, Kroll?
Well, I have to agree with Dave there. I love comedy as much as I love fantasy and stuff, and that was definitely the funny scene in the movie. And so, yeah, it's definitely my favorite scene. He's just the way, like you said, Sean Connery did it. Like he sounded like he had a sword stuck up there and someone was sitting on his tongue. He sounded like it. Did such a great job with that. And, the whole banter between the two, and if your teeth come down, my sword goes up, and vice versa, and it was just really funny. And you notice that they're in a standstill, and then they finally admit, yeah, they're in a standstill, and then he like just spits them out and drops his claw on them, and he could have crushed him right there. He could have killed him easily, but he didn't want to kill him. So he gave him a choice. We can continue fighting, which I believe Drago would have won anyways. But we can do this plan, and it's a great scene. It's really funny, and definitely well done, and really funny. So that's my favorite scene as well.
All right. How about you, Dustin?
It's kind of a mix of different things, because there's a lot to like in this movie for me, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the failed scam scene when the villagers approach Draco going meat. Because that's always what I think of when I think of this movie. Like, it's what I picture in my head the most. And it's the joke I quote to myself the most too. Meat. So I'm gonna have to go with that.
Okay. How about you, Mo?
Oh boy, I mean, I'm with Dustin. It's hard to choose. There's a lot that I love about the movie, but I think just cumulatively all the stuff of them scamming the people with the dragon, is just genius. Like, I could have watched a whole TV show of them just running around doing that. So just all of that stuff, to brilliant scam, Last Dragon, and this dragon hunter dude just making some coin, getting some mutton. you know. And I mean, of
Well-
course, you know, the scene with him in the mouth is just good comedy gold, you know.
Oh, going on that scene, we did forget something. I was gonna say, when they, when the woman first said that he's working with the dragon, and all the guys just laughed at her, like, "Oh, that's ridiculous! The dragon's
Yeah.
working with him, with the knight," you know, and they're
Yeah.
laughing their asses off, until they realize, oh shit, she's telling the truth.
He's in league with the dragon, in league with the dragon, and he just like looks at them and like shakes his head, like, and they're like said, like realizing the joke, and they're like, ha 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 ha, ah, ha 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 ha. That's such a fun moment.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay. And Jake, what about you?
I have to agree. It's hard to pick favorites with this one. As far as that scene that everyone keeps talking about, one of my favorite lines, I think, was where Brother Gilbert was like, "This one's even bigger than the last one," or something like that. And then Bowen's kind of like, "No, he's about the same size."
Yep.
But if I had to pick, at least narrow it down, I really, really like Gilbert and Kara as characters. Both of them I really liked. And Gilbert amused me, and Kara, like I said, she was kind of a badass, and she was pretty hot. And the scene with her with the axe and taking out Brock probably was the top one there. But if I had to pick a single line, it might be the one where Draco said that I only chewed in self-defense and I never swallowed. That was good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was a great line.
Okay, and Brandon?
To me, it's probably the scene where they're both like, where they've tried to pull the scam. Of course, the scam was found out because of the shallow water. Then he comes back and the dragon is just chilling, having casual conversation with the main female character, which is to me that I don't know why, but I always find that funny.
How many dragons do you know?
And for me, I guess one of them is what I mentioned before when they first started the scheme, and then he comes up out of the water, and all you see is his head, and he's looking over at them sheep, and he's like, "Well, hello." He's got that big old grin on his face. But then, of course, you know, I agree. The whole fight scene while Bowen is in his mouth is like priceless. So.
I know you also like that scene where he just comes up over the sunrise and spreads his wings.
Oh yeah,
as well.
That's a great shot.
That is a great shot. And if you saw that actually in the theater, what they showed in the theater when the movie started, they showed that just him coming up with the red background, just the dragon coming up as when the movie started.
Ooh.
So, because I remember that's something that they showed, just that, and then they went to the what you normally see for the movie starting, but in the theater they showed that.
I feel like that extra little bumper does ring a bell. Now that you mention that.
Well, my boyfriend at the time wanted to go sit as close as you possibly could, and we were like in one of the first rows, and it starts off, and he goes woof like that. I'm like, whoa.
Nice. See, that would be that's the kind of thing that I do the same thing. I like to sit up front, so I get like the full, basically your full field of vision taken up by movie. And sometimes it's but sometimes you get shots where it's like, okay, I'm glad I was here, in this spot.
I'm more of a center aisle kind of guy, like midway up. If I can get right behind the handicap seats where I can put my feet on the railing, I'm about that. That's choice. But I will agree,
Right.
there are certain times where I've sat up front in the past, and I was glad that I did.
I
Like
used to
the
watch
last
that when I was
time.
a kid, as I got older, couldn't quite hold my neck up back that far, kind of hurt. So now I pretty much enjoy the back row more. But yeah, definitely was a front row as a kid. No matter what the movie was or whatever, I went right up front row. Even horror movies.
Okay, so Dave.
Well, is there anything else that anyone wanted to add to the film before we do our outros?
I mean, it's get out there, show this to your kids. That's kind of that's where the magic still is, I think. And a lot of these movies, while they might, it might look slightly dated, it still holds up pretty well. I'm glad Brandon brought that point up. So definitely, if you have like kids or younger relatives, throw on some Dragonheart and maybe just don't show them the sequels. I don't know. I've heard varying things about those.
I was just
I've only
wondering
seen
that myself.
I've only seen the first sequel, but I remember I thought it was okay. Like
The
geared
second
for
movie is
younger
actually
children.
good. It's got a lot of good humor in it too. The second one.
Well, and it's got the
Okay.
kid who played in the Earthsea film that was kind of like a mini series on Sci-Fi for a little bit. I know that. So, but there are some funny moments in the second one, for sure. It's just been a while.
Well, I mean, on
since
the
I've
same
seen it.
hand, too, you can get all 5 of them in one set. So I suppose it can't hurt to go
Right.
through them.
I'm all in one Blu-ray set for under 10, which that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good deal.
So I was kind of curious about that myself, like if anyone had seen all of them and what they thought, because I've heard mixed things too about the sequels.
I've seen
I only
all
know
five.
that there was 5 because, like I said,
I've
when I was
seen all
looking for
5
the
of
movie,
them, but
they all popped up.
Okay.
Oh, well, at
I
least
kind of
somebody's seen
was
it.
drawn to it because I like Dragonheart so much that every time another one came out and another one came out, another one. Yes, I've seen all 5 of them. I will say I like the second one and I like the last one. The third and the fourth are kind of
All right.
Aren't
me.
some
Well,
of
last
them,
one
like,
looked really
prequels
cool.
or something? I feel like I read that. Like at least one or two of them are prequels, right?
Well, the beginning one that's the second one. That's a prequel. I'm not sure about the others. I'll have to watch them again because
I might just plow through them out of sheer morbid
Yeah, I was thinking of that
curiosity.
when I found out there was more than one that might check out the others.
I think a lifetime of horror film sequels has trained me to be very leery.
We're very
of
forgiving.
movies getting sequels. Yeah, that too, Dustin. You're onto something there. But
Right, you're
You
wary,
haven't-
but you also
You haven't seen a
are
bad
forgiving.
movie until you've seen Jurassic Shark. I mean, you can handle anything
Yeah.
after you've seen that.
Or any of the Starship Trooper sequels.
Yeah,
Any
I
of
don't
the
watch
what
any of those
sequels?
type of movies.
Or Paul Blart too.
Starship Trooper sequels.
Yeah,
Oh
I've
my.
not seen the
Second
Starship
one.
Troopers sequels. I saw the
That
original. and
second
was
one
it.
was a nightmare to sit through. I did not like that second Starship Trooper sequel.
well,
Yeah, it
and plus
wasn't.
there's a
They
couple of
didn't seem
animated ones.
interesting. The first one was great, but the rest, no, it seemed like they went downhill.
But
All
in
right.
any case, let's go into our outros then. So let's go starting
Actually-
with.
Are we doing outros on this
Actually, I
round?
should say
Oh yeah, that's
that
right. We don't
is
have to do
anyone
our
going to not be here for the Tingler? If you're not,
I
then you can do an
unfortunately have to sit that one out. But I think you
Oh.
guys are pretty up to
Okay.
speed on my outro at this point. I just do full moon shit lately, so come over
Didn't
and check
watch
out
it,
some
huh?
of that. Had a pretty
If you're-
nightmare of a stream last night.
It's Retro Cult.
Retro Cult home video. So,
If y'all
I
don't
think you'd
know
like
who
it there, Mo.
if y'all don't know who we are, come join us on our Inside Movies Galore channel and come figure out who we are.
indeed. And thanks for choosing this one, Tammy. It was a treat
Yeah.
to watch it again. I just revisited it like last summer, but I was not, bummed to have an excuse to watch it again. So
Okay, thank you.
And
All right.
have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Join us on Inside Movies Galore shortly. So like, share, and subscribe, and have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
All right, everyone.